In this lecture, we'll be talking about the concept of sustainable cities. After discussing about various issues, environmental issues related to urban areas, and also talking about the concept of the smart cities, now we'll talk about the concept of sustainable cities. Now, the word sustainable is not new to us, and we all know that to sustain means to be for a longer time, to be for a longer duration, to be active for a longer time. So sustainable cities are those cities that live longer. Now, living longer is not just enough, but living longer efficiently and actively is important. And therefore, when we talk about sustainability, I mean sustainable cities, we basically talk about cities that run longer, actively, efficiently, working for the people with cleaner environments. Now, first of all, we should know why we want to make our city sustainable. So there are obviously two important or basic factors that make sustainable cities necessary. The first important point is that there is phenomenal rise of population living in the cities. Especially this rise we can find in the countries of the Asia Pacific. Now, with such an enormous population rise and relatively limited resources at hand, obviously there is a tremendous stress on these resources, which then further lead to a number of urban environmental issues, some of which we had talked earlier in the earlier lectures. Now, as a result of that, there are a number of urban problems. They are not necessarily only environmental problems, but there are different kinds of urban problems that arises mainly because of this extremely high population and then associated stress on resources. And that is why we need to see how cities will not collapse, because of this increasing population and absolutely degraded environment, and how cities will continue to be or continue to exist longer. And again, as I was saying, not just existing physically, but how actually they can continue to be there more actively and efficiently. So sustainable cities basically are the cities which are designed with consideration for social, economic, and environmental impact. So sustainability is not just environmental, it is at the same time social and economic. This is a very important aspect that we need to remember. So because only looking after environment, by regardless of its social or economic impacts, is obviously having a very one-sided approach to sustainability. So sustainability is a combination of environment, society, and economy, all three together. Sustainable cities also are resilient cities. What is resilient here? Here, resilient means cities that can absorb the problem, cities that can cope up with various problems. Rather, they can, and not just coping, they can cope with it, they can overcome those problems, and they continue to move ahead, right? Taking lessons from all those problems, correcting the systems, and then moving ahead. So it is more about coping, overcoming the problems, keeping on correcting, adjusting with the changing times, and then keeping on moving ahead without affecting the productivity. So creating such cities which are resilient cities is very much associated with making of the sustainable cities. So as I was telling, sustainable cities basically are those that achieve sustainability in terms of environment, in terms of society and in terms of economy. As you can see in this diagram, I mean, in this graphic, that sustainable development is a combination of economic development, social progress, as well as environmental responsibility. Because only cleaner world is not enough, but the world which is based on equity, the world which is based on balanced development is equally important for our sustenance. And therefore, all these three important factors are the pillars of sustainable cities. As I was saying, the purpose of having sustainable cities is obviously to conserve the urban environment, also to give an order, to give a system to public spaces, as well as to enhance their aesthetic value so that people can enjoy a peaceful and a pleasant life. Similarly, sustainable cities are also meant for increasing the life of the cities so that people can carry out economic activities efficiently, and obviously, as I was saying, to tackle a number of urban problems. Now, for this, we require investment. Investment not only of money, but also investment of time, investment of technology, etc. Okay, in number of areas, in number of important sectors. Okay, the most important are the renewable energy sources, because we all know the extremely high demand of energy in the cities, and we do not have the conventional energy resources are very limited available with us, and so we have to, and the renewable energy resources therefore are the future energy resources, so we need investment in that sector. Similarly, efficiency in the use of in the use of water and electricity, or designing and implementing compact cities, retrofitting of buildings and increase of green areas. We have talked about retrofitting in smart cities, so we know that it's all about correcting the problems in the existing system. So the existing built up areas can be corrected and can be repaired, and whatever the problems or issues are can be addressed, and they can be used again, and they can become more effective in their use. Again, it is also connected with transportation, which is faster, which is reliable, which is also affordable, and obviously improved waste practices, improved waste management practices, and recycling systems are also important for sustainable cities. In all these areas, we require a lot of investment. Now, we should know that when we have a social progress and economic development as well as cleaner environment, so all these three put together will make our urban areas or will make our cities more livable. And if you see this map in front of us, which is based on current data and talking about the city's livability index, how far the cities are livable based on these three basic criteria. So we can see that those blue shaded dots talk about or show the most livable cities of the world as per 2022 data, and those with yellow shaded marks are showing us the least livable cities. So this map basically talks about a lot of imbalance as far as livability is concerned. And if we correspond these dots with the levels of development of the countries, then we can broadly see that the most livable cities are in the developed countries. So it is located in Northern America, in Europe, and in Australia, New Zealand, and all these areas. We also have, I mean, Japan also is included in it. But least livable cities are largely located in the developing or less developed parts of the world. That basically includes Central and South America, Africa, the Middle East, the South Asia, Southeast Asia, and all these areas. So so there is a lot of differences. There is a lot of imbalance as far as livability index is concerned in the world. As per this data itself, the world's most livable cities The top 10 are shown in this graphic. Vienna is the world's most livable cities, followed by Copenhagen, Zurich, and all other cities of the world. So again, the point remains the same, that most of these cities are in the developed world and not in less developed or the developing countries. Now, the less developed countries fundamentally lack in terms of capital. They have resources, but they lack in terms of capital. So such countries require support. Such countries require resources, basically to support green technology transfer, to support capacity development, to improve access to soundly constructed housing, water, sanitation, electricity, health, and education. So all these basic amenities are required to be addressed. Now, once this support is provided, then obviously the situation regarding livability in the cities of the poorer countries can also be improved. Now, there can be certain steps, certain strategies that can be taken to make our cities sustainable. And the first important strategy is connected with the open and green spaces, because having more open spaces and greener spaces, it helps us in controlling basically the problems of the urban heat island, problems of pollution, air and water, and it also increases the aesthetic value, and it can be used as a recreational space or a leisure space for the people. As we were talking about in the smart city concept, having more open spaces or greener spaces for recreation and leisure is equally important from the point of view of the psychological health of the urban residents. As far as pollution is concerned, there are a number of strategies that needs to be applied to control pollution, and one of the strategies is the polluter pays principle, where the one who pollutes needs to pay for that, and it is through that money one can also maintain, or it can be invested further in maintaining the cleanliness in the city, and also to control different kinds of pollution. Similarly, the TOD, or the transit oriented development approach, becomes important, in which we try to create the major arteries or major channels of transport, especially public transport, and then we try to do development around these lines of transit. Such kind of mass rapid transit with public transport like buses, trams, or in mono and metro rails, which are now built with public-private partnership. So such public transport lines play a significant role in development, because if we encourage and promote people to take up public transport more and more, and reduce the use of private transport, it will go a long way as far as controlling the pollution is concerned. It obviously also will take care of the traffic congestions, and along with it, the most important part is to create specific lanes, to create specific areas where the pedestrians and cyclists can use, because to creating neighborhoods which are walkable, or where one can reach just by walking to a particular place or by cycling to a particular place, needs to be encouraged. So we need to have a separate lanes for the cyclists, or a wider and clear footpaths for the walkers to walk through, and so such areas are also equally important. We have learned a lot about work from home conditions, especially during COVID-19 lockdown. And after that, there are a number of industries now that are supporting or that are shifting themselves to the work from home idea. Now, this idea, though it was not new, it was there before COVID-19 also, and it was a part of the sustainable city strategy, because if we shift to work from home concept, then it will reduce the need for the people to travel, to commute day to day basis, and that will help to reduce the levels of pollution to a considerable extent. These are some of the important countries in the world that have implemented the transit oriented development approach. So we have in India, so we have Mumbai and we have Raipur, Hubli, Dharwad. So these are some of the areas, cities where transit oriented development approach has been followed. These are some examples of the cities. There are many other cities also where this TOD approach is implemented. Recycling of waste, composting, these are very important aspects, because as the population of the cities increases, it also leads to increase in the quantity of waste that is generated. Now that waste needs to be dumped, it needs to be managed. Now it also needs to be managed sustainably, because just dumping of waste is not a solution to the problem, because rather it will create a more environmental issues. First of all, in many of the cities, there is dearth of land. There is no land where we can just dump the waste. Dumping waste in water body has its own issues, its own problem. Even just burning it also leads to number of issues. So it is always better to find out ways and means to recycle waste. And in this particular sector, one can involve the locals, and especially the urban poor, if are involved, if they are given a proper training and incentives, then it also becomes a major source of income for the urban poor. So how we can bring the economy and environment together, that becomes that also significant significant aspect of it. Composting, so use of bio toilets, segregation of waste, and use of organic waste for composting is also a significant part of making our cities sustainable. This compost can be used for horticulture, floriculture, or also for vegetable gardening in the green belt of the city. Overall, public awareness campaigns are significant, because unless and until people support these initiatives, unless and until people participate in the initiatives, unless they follow all these strategies themselves, the cities are not going to be sustainable. So people needs to be encouraged to adopt these strategies, and for that we need awareness campaigns, tree plantation drives, cleanliness drives such as the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, a number of campaigns that are associated with it, which has been carried out all over the country. Such kind of mass scale public campaigns is very significant. Obviously, only campaign is not important. One has to see that these campaigns translate into a daily practice. So that becomes an important, challenge rather, in bringing in making or encouraging people to adopt the practices. There are many specific practices that can be adopted. These are few. For example, planting evergreen trees, because evergreen trees absorb the sound waves better. So to reduce noise pollution, planting of evergreen trees along the road is an important strategy. Now, what we usually see that in the expansion and concretization of roads, it happens that a lot of vegetation, lot of trees and plants along the roadside are cut down, they are removed, and there is no replantation, or there is no replantation takes place. Now, so that is necessary to go for planting more evergreen trees along the road. So not only we will be benefited because of its environmental and aesthetic results, but also from the point of view of reducing noise pollution. The archaeological and historical monuments or the places of historical archaeological importance also needs to be protected. Then there needs to be protected because they are our heritage, and it is through them we learn the past of the city. And to know the past of the city is also equally important, and it is possible only if we can protect these areas, we can protect these places. So that also becomes extremely necessary. It is not just that it has got a historical value, but again it can be turned into an economic value when we utilize the or we integrate it with the tourism practices. So the development of historical tourism or heritage tourism play a very significant role. So we can, on one side, the heritage is protected. On the other side, it becomes self-sustainable through the integration of all these places with tourism. Cities are also not free from disasters. Disasters that are natural in nature or they can be anthropogenic. It is necessary, therefore, that the people needs to be trained, they needs to be made aware about these disasters and how to respond to this disaster at the time of the disaster and afterwards, how these anthropogenic disasters can be prevented. So the training and awareness programs for all these is also very significant from the point of view of making our cities sustainable. Now, the SDG or the Sustainable Development Goals do take care of all these things, because the Sustainable Development Goal number 11 talks about sustainable cities and sustainable communities. So it is all related to making cities and our human settlements more inclusive, safer, resilient, and sustainable. And therefore, for that, what we require, what should be our goal, which will make our cities sustainable. So that includes safe and affordable housing and basic services, safe and sustainable transportation system, inclusive urbanization and participatory integrated planning, cultural and natural heritage, the protection and conservation of it, resilience to disasters, again natural or anthropogenic, reduced environmental impact of the cities, and then improving or increasing greener spaces, public spaces, looking into the rural urban linkages to see that these linkages also are more sustainable, they are sound and healthy. I mean, they should not be one-sided, that the rural areas are being exploited by the urban areas. Instead, how the rural areas also can be developed, with the help of the cities which are located nearby. Developing comprehensive disaster risk management plan for the cities, and obviously providing financial support, technical support for making the buildings, the built up areas in the cities more sustainable and resilient. Because again, as I said, sustainable city is not just the clean city. It is not just the city where the environment is clean, but it is also the city which is socially and economically efficient at the same time. So uh, thanks a lot. I hope you have understood about the concept of sustainable city, and you will be able to write the answer to this question in examination. If you have any problem, you can get connected and you can meet me and get the problem solved. Thanks a lot.